to welcome the first speaker of the Affirmative team, Chen Liu.
Free tertiary education makes for a richer, ulterior society. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the grand final of the Advanced ISAY debating competition. Tonight, Earnest Rutherford will prove that we can make tertiary education free for graduates who stay in New Zealand. Our case is threefold. As first speaker, I'll be outlining to you the problem, what is wrong with the status quo. Secondly, I'll be moving on to detailing our proposal, what are the key operative components. And thirdly, I'll be proving how this proposal will provide incentive and economic and educational benefits for the New Zealand society. Second speaker, Matthew Graham, will continue and talk about economic feasibility in the long term. He will talk about the necessity of the subsequent technological economy that this proposal would create. And he'll also talk about the social benefits of having a brighter society. Third speaker, Luke Sizer, will conclude by the extension of the benefits that we've outlined, and also talk about the benefits that this will have in terms of foreign students studying in New Zealand. But before I explain the problem, allow me to first briefly introduce to you our proposal.
Sir.
And main point you defined. Earnest Rutherford proposes that this will have an optional clause in the university enrolment process, which, when signed, means that they will receive free tertiary education so long as they attain the qualification that they enroll for, and that they work in New Zealand for a minimum of 15 years. So now the problem. What is wrong with the current system? Well, frankly, ladies and gentlemen, our skilled graduates are leaving for overseas. And that is costing our society. It is costing our economy, it is costing our business ventures, and it's costing our educational side. The thing is, the main impetus for students to leave overseas to work is that they need to pay over the whopping student loan. No, thank you, Mr. George. They need to pay the whopping student loan that they acquire in New Zealand. And frankly, overseas jobs pay more money. Therefore,
information.
No, thank you. They go overseas so that they can acquire more money to pay off the student loan quicker. It's a common fact that New Zealand has a brain drain issue. As the statistic is thrown around, 5 medical specialists are lost to Australia per week. This is a significant problem, ladies and gentlemen. Now, what in effect this does, no, thank you. What in effect this does is this costs our economy. What we have to do in New Zealand business is to pay higher money for overseas employment, for example. An overseas medical specialist, if they were to work in New Zealand, then New Zealand businesses would have to pay more money for them to work here.
Point of information.
Yes, sir.
Why could you explain exactly how it costs more money to get an overseas specialist to come and work in New Zealand?
Because the overseas specialist would be usually a specialist, a higher end of their business area. So therefore, we would expect them to have a higher level of skill. Therefore, their skills means greater demand for pay. Not only does this create more money for overseas, we have to spend more money for overseas salaries, but also this creates staff shortages within New Zealand. It's obvious that only 3 of the district health boards operate at an acceptable level of efficiency, So what this creates is, in effect, problems such as long waiting lists, which could provide the motivation for legalizing the sale of human organs, for example. All of this is costing our economy. We need...
On that point,
No, thank you. Also, we need to send people overseas for treatment, because many of the specialists and doctors, for example, in New Zealand, are not skilled enough to treat them. This is obviously an issue that is costing our taxpayers. They don't pay to go overseas, we do. And what all of this contributes to, ladies and gentlemen, is that it pushes our nation further away from an economy dependent upon innovation and technology. It pushes our economy further away from the technological era that the high-end economies of the Western world are delving into. So in a nutshell, our skilled graduates are not staying in New Zealand, and this is costing New Zealand society. So now, our proposal. What are the key operative components? First of all, during the enrollment process, there will be an additional contract that will be available, which will contain the following clauses. Number 1, that this is optional. Now this has 2 meanings. First of all, it has the component of free will. You can or you may not choose to take part into this program. Secondly, if you know of circumstances in the future that will prohibit you that will prohibit you from working in New Zealand for 15 years as outlined, then you can have the liberty of not signing into the contract. Secondly, there is a condition for this to be free. You must first attain the qualification. Only after you attain the degree or the master's PhD, only then will your education be free. Now, why do we do this? This will try and stop the huge influx that the negating team might believe will occur by having many students all involving in just for the hell of it. Why not? It's free. Thirdly, is that the clause will contain the fact that they must be employed in New Zealand for a minimum of 15 years.
On that point.
Thank you.
On that point, sir.
No, thank you. During this 15-year period, they may not leave New Zealand for overseas employment, except for, of course, in certain circumstances. For example, if they are employed by a New Zealand company to do research overseas, obviously they can do that. Common sense applies here. How do we implement this 15-year period? Well, when a person signs this contract and opts into this program, they'll be added to a database that is linked in with the visa, with their visa and their police file and their passport. So, at an airport, if they do choose to go overseas for employment, we will have a notice. They will be tracked, and we can easily contact their foreign government and tell them that they have a contract that limits them to employment in New Zealand. And lastly, that this is phased in over a period of time with, and I note, we will target the high and technological courses first. For example, engineering, medicine, business management, scientific researchers, for example. Why? Because we want to make sure this is a gradual process, that this is not too sudden and cause too much of a shift. And secondly, these are the occupations that will most likely benefit the New Zealand economy if we target them. If medicine, for example, will have huge benefits to New Zealand health. So, now onto a substantive case. Number one, this ultimately will provide incentive for people to work in New Zealand. Not having to pay off a $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 student loan is a massive incentive to stay in New Zealand. See, they will no longer see university education as a burden, but rather as opportunity.
On that point,
David.
the legal specialists overseas are getting like $2 million a year. They're even going to remain in New Zealand just so they can not have a $60,000 student loan.
I'm not quite sure if he understood that question myself. See, this is actually a stimulus and a catalyst for people to raise the profile of tertiary education, so that it is more of an incentive to go and attain tertiary education. Secondly, is the educational benefits. It's obvious that the higher thinkers, that the more professionalized and specialized people are often involved in the education industry. For example, my university professor this year was involved in the biotechnology field, and he has been a specialist in that for quite some time. What this in effect will do will increase the level of education in New Zealand, especially in the tertiary level. And finally, I'll begin to outline economic feasibility. First of all, in taxes. The specialists that work in New Zealand will have to pay tax. And as we know, we are one of the highest taxed nations in the world. So the income tax from these jobs will feed back into the money that might be used for this program. And ladies and gentlemen, let's not forget that we already have the capability to do this. The New Zealand government economy at the moment is on a high with our multi-billion-dollar surplus. And also we have interest-free student loans at the moment, which is just an indication of this government's ability to cater to such a program. Matthew will continue to discuss the long-term benefits, economic benefits, the long-term economic feasibility, and be able to have a more technological economy. So to summarize, what is the problem? We are losing highly specialized, highly skilled graduates overseas, and it's costing our society. What's the proposal? In fact, we have this program that is optional, lasts 15 years, and the condition of attaining the qualification is there. How it will work, provide incentive, and educational benefits, and have short-term economic feasibility. For those reasons, ladies and gentlemen, tonight the move must stand.